Hi everybody, I'm Federico and today I'm gonna talk about how to install Puma. So Puma is a NASA software and I'm currently on the NASA GitHub page where you can find most of the information about the software, how to install it, etc. So I just want to briefly mention that this is not the only repository where you can find information on. There is also a GitLab development repository where you can find the most recent updates to the software. But so for a normal user, I would recommend going just on the NASA GitHub page and where you can run the installation for the latest release. So for Puma, we rely heavily on Conda packages, and Anaconda is basically a packaging system that allows you to distribute software easily. And this is not only applicable to Python packages, but it's also for hybrid softwares like Puma, for example. It has both a component that is written in C++, and the other component, the most recent addition, is Puma Pi, which is written in Python. So if we run this command conda create, this is gonna basically create a conda environment, and in this case I'm just gonna call it Puma tutorial for the conda environment, and then on the right we have the software name, which is pulled from a conda channel called Conda Forge. So basically Anaconda works by channels which are basically repositories of software which have been packaged up in different ways. And Conda Forge is the community. It's one of the biggest channels on Anaconda Cloud, and it's a big community. So we have gone through the whole process of approval for Conda Forge, and Puma is currently on their channel. So this is going through the installation of all the dependencies of Puma inside the Conda environment that we've created. And it's basically checking that everything can be installed on your specific system. Once this is completed, as it has just finished, we're going to be able to Conda activate the environment. And as you can see on the left-hand side of my name, this has popped up as the environment that is currently active. And so if we now run, for example, Python, and we import Puma Pi, the very first time that you run this command, it's gonna take a few seconds to compile and install some of the Python code. And so once this is completed, as it just did, we're gonna be able to run Puma Pi dot, for example, workspace, and we can, if we hit tab, it auto-completes, so we have access to the classes and functions of Puma Pi. So I'm just gonna exit out of Python, and in this case I'm gonna run the Puma Gui instead. And so as you can see now, I also auto-completed it. It knows the name automatically because we are inside the Conda environment in which we have installed Puma. So if we run this, it's gonna open up a GUI, and which is talking directly to both the C++ functions as well as some of the Python code. And so just to give you an example, and I'm gonna go through more in detail later about these capabilities, I've just created a fiber domain which is 100 cube, and now I'm gonna render it using the 3D render function. And this is no worries if you don't know what I'm doing currently. I'm gonna go through more in detail later. This is just an example to show you that the software is currently running. So I'm gonna just close everything, and then next I'm gonna talk about a couple of more ways of installing Puma. So the one that you've just seen, to create both an environment and installing that environment Puma, is the recommended way through the conda command. Another way that we have also packaged up Puma is using pip. So pip is basically another packaging system that only works for Python packages. So by running pip install Puma Pi, it's gonna basically install only the left-hand side of this diagram for the software architecture, which is basically only the Python package. And so as a side note, These two commands run different things on Unix, so both Linux and Mac. So the first one installs everything, every component of Puma, both the C++ GUI and the Python package. And whereas pip install Puma Pi only installs the Python package. On Windows, it works slightly differently, and so both commands only install the Python package. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I want to also introduce how somebody that would like to modify the source code would go about and do that. So basically, what I recommend, so for a normal user, I recommend using the conda command that I've just gone through. So for somebody that would like to make changes to the source code or in general have access to the source code, my recommendation is to go on the Puma Dev GitLab repository and Git cloning, basically copying the URL that is in here. And I go on a new terminal tab, and I'm going to type git clone and then the URL that I copied. This basically just downloads the code on wherever folder you are there. And so now I'm gonna cd inside Puma Dev, and here is basically where we're gonna start working inside this folder. So I'm not gonna go into the details of the source code in this video tutorial because I'm gonna cover this in the next section. But what I wanted to reference is, if you go inside the README, there are 3 different links that you can follow and references. One of the most important ones is the first one called Docs. And so this one takes you to the Puma documentation. So we spent quite a lot of effort into documenting every single function inside Puma, very thoroughly for Python and a little less for C++. But as you can see, like if we go function by function, we also added an example of how to run it. And so the other 2 links that are here take you to both the 2 packaging systems that I mentioned earlier. For Anaconda Cloud, here it gives you basically another conda install command that you can run, although I recommend using the one that I added to the README, which also creates an encapsulated environment. And the other one is here for Puma Pi on PyPy. So a last note that I wanted to mention is that, as you can see from these links, as well as on the GitHub, we have the different versions for Puma basically are under this releases section. So if I click on here, I just wanted to show you that we are currently on version 3.0, which is the one that has been approved for being open source. And so since it was released in August, we have already made a few other releases. We're currently at 3.1.6, and so every time that we have made a big enough change that warranted a new release, we basically just bump the version, and all the packages get automatically rebuilt on both PyPy and Anaconda Cloud. So in order to always be up to date and be running the latest version, you can go back to the main README, and unless you haven't made changes to the source code itself, you can just basically remove the conda environment by running this command, and the name has to match whatever name of the environment you gave. And then you can rerun the conda create with the Puma package attached to it, so that it basically downloads the latest release. So this is the end of this tutorial video. I'm gonna talk more about how to set up a project and get started with running Puma in the next one. Thank you. Okay, so that's the first installation section. I hope it was clear enough and everybody could follow it. If anyone has any questions at all, or if anyone has any problems, like don't hesitate to shout out. And since one technical thing is that while I'm playing the video, I cannot monitor the chat. I mean, I guess I can on my other computer, but it's easier if people just shut out and I can quickly pause it. So if there are no other questions,
so there are some questions in the chat. Hang
okay.
on, we should address. The first one is there's been some questions about using the Puma Gui on Windows. So there is not currently support to run it natively on Windows. However, if there's enough interest in this, then maybe this is something we can develop. There is a kind of a hacky way to do it, which is on Windows 10, and I think Windows 11 is out, but I haven't used it. I'm not sure if it's available on Windows 11 or not. There's a Linux subsystem that can be installed that lets you run, I think it's basically just Ubuntu behind the scenes, and you can use that to install Puma, and then I think you have to forward the graphics or something, and then you can launch the GUI. So I don't know how to do that well enough that I could demonstrate it live on this tutorial, but I can find a Linux, a Windows machine and record a little video on how to do that. And we can upload that to the tutorial YouTube channel, which will be very soon released, and will include the videos that we record from this. Second is, there's a question of, will we be shown how to use Puma on Windows without the GUI? So for Puma Pi, the way of using PyCharm project or just general Python and linking to the Puma project should be the exact same on Windows as it will be on Mac and Linux. So that section of the tutorial will still be very applicable. And also, I
also have a small section where I set up PyCharm also on Windows. So that will come inside the TechGen section.
Okay, Craig mentions that he was able to get it running on the Linux subsystem with Windows 11. Craig, did you have to do a command to tell it to forward the graphics to Windows in order to get the GUI running? You can either type in the chat or just unmute yourself as you want.
I think the answer is yes, but because I had to do the same, but I let Craig answering that.
Okay, well, either way, like I said, we'll put out a video soon when we upload these as well on. Oh, okay, Craig says that Microsoft has a setup now with the new Linux subsystem that does not require forwarding. So it might be easier on Windows 11 than it is on Windows 10. But yeah, we'll put out instructions and we'll probably add it to the README as well if there seems to be interest in this. So.